everybody, my name is Brittany Owens, and I'm going to be talking today about biofuels. Um, Americans rely on 81% of their energy needs on fossil fuels. Um, what does that mean? What does 81% mean? And if you break that down in terms of states, Florida, for example, is one of the largest states in terms of population, only population. And right now, Florida is one of the top demanders in use of gasoline. They demand so much gasoline because they have 20 million people living in this state. And of that 20 million people, 15 million of them are registered drivers, and this is only including cars, trucks, and motorcycles. That's it. And of that 15 million drivers, all of them use gasoline. And gasoline is burning, emissions that are toxic fumes such as carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide is turned into smog, which that smog releases, can lead to respiratory illnesses and even be cancerous in extreme cases. Um, so, you know, in Florida has emitted 294 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in 2007 alone. And that number is increasing 2.1% every since the 1990s. Every year it's growing. It's not getting any less. And one way that we can start cutting those carbon dioxide emissions from the burning of gasoline is through biofuels. Now, biofuels are considered a sustainable solution because they can be regenerated faster. They are renewable energy, where fossil fuel takes millions of years to be produced. So the most common form of biofuel is ethanol, and that is being processed down into ethanol from corn, sugar canes, switchgrass. And these crops help take in carbon dioxide emissions, which then is being produced back out into oxygen. Now, one thing that, people that are against, biofuels is saying is that these machineries that break down these biofuels into ethanol releases carbon dioxide. Not the biofuels, but the process to make them biofuels is releasing carbon dioxide. But these crops, this corn, sugar canes, they're still intaking, all these carbon dioxides, and that offset from these machineries to process them is still a greater number of 50 to 60%. So it's still helping more than it is hurting the atmosphere. Another issue that is being brought up with biofuels is the land use change. And what that means is that, you're taking away land needed to grow crops for food. All this corn that we're wasting on biofuels can be helping feed Americans and other people around the world. Global hunger is one of the number one issues in every country, in every world. It's a major global issue. And so a lot of people think that it's unethical to, be growing these plants to use for fuel instead of feeding, hungry people around the world. And yes, that is true. That's a great point. You can't really, back that in any way. So that's an issue that we're having with, biofuels at this current moment.
Hi there, I'm Humberto and I'm part of Team Biofuels. I will be discussing our drivers and indicators from our Transformational Sustainability Research Report. When looking at our issue of biofuels, we look at indirect land use change from biofuel production. When looking at drivers and indicators, we first look at a causal chain analysis. This helps analyze ecosystems by classifying key drivers, showing their relationships, and determining their impact on the system. To show this, we have drawn out an impact diagram, shown here. Here we have 4 different direct drivers: fertilizer consumption, agriculture, fossil fuel usage, and deforestation. We chose agriculture as our primary driver and deforestation as our secondary driver. By looking at these direct drivers, we get our indirect drivers, shown in the green boxes. This helps us understand the problem in a bigger way and helps us better determine the impact on our system. After this, our research team took a look at indicators. Indicators help us in three different ways. They first help us answer the question of where the system currently stands with respect to sustainability. Secondly, how far you have to go to reach sustainability. And thirdly, which way you are headed towards or away from sustainability. These 5 indicators are ethanol price, water footprint, biofuel certification schemes, sustainable biomass potential, and rising temperature. Each of these indicators help us monitor the state of the system. By looking at drivers and indicators, we get a better understanding of our wicked problem.
Hello, I'm Richard Wolf, and I'm going to discuss our transition strategy for the solution of our wicked problem. To track the success of our vision, we have chosen 2 indicators that we will review at each of 4 target phases of the transition. The indicators we have chosen are CO2 emissions and the quantity of biofuels produced. The United States Energy Information Administration generates reports annually that include this data. In the pre-development phase, we will expect no improvement for either indicator. This represents the present day. It is now that our strategic action to stimulate transition takes place. This will require some fundamental changes. The norms and beliefs of the stakeholders regarding energy use must be shifted towards a more sustainable source. Our strategy focuses on education and policy. Local communities, universities, and the media will play an important role in supporting this strategy. If consumers agree on the transition, the oil companies and car manufacturers will have to respond. They will be motivated to increase their production of biofuels and the vehicles that use them. In the takeoff and acceleration phases, we should witness a spike in biofuel production and a significant decrease in carbon emissions. In order for this goal to be reached, innovation in biofuel technology must be improved to avoid the effects of land use change. At this stage, governing policy will be helpful to demand national standards of fuel production and carbon emissions. Lastly, if successful, we will reach our long-term goal, or stabilization target. Here, the majority of our energy needs will be met by a clean-burning biomass-based alternative, with little to no harmful emissions. Barriers exist that will restrict this transition. People tend to make choices based on selfish thoughts. For this transition to take off, consumers must consider the environmental impacts of their choices and what they choose to support. Technology will be another barrier. This type of innovation is a slow and expensive process. Lastly, politics will be a major barrier. Policy changes can be messy and timely, especially when primary stakeholders, like oil companies, supply campaign funding for politicians.
When examining wicked problems like ours, it is always important to have a solution. Without one for biofuels, agricultural production will continue to increase and land use change will continue to cause substantial problems. We may also start to see a loss in agricultural jobs as we start to rely on machines. I study sustainability because I want to promote a sustainable planet for my kids and future generations to come. My kids right now only consist of 8 fur babies, but I do want them to have a healthy planet to run around on. The vision my group hopes to see in the future of sustainability is the one promoted by the European Union. In order to decrease dependency on fossil fuels and strive for a more sustainable state of energy needs, the European Commission adopted the Biomass Action Plan and the European Union Strategy for Biofuels. This plan is part of a vision to increase the responsible production of biofuels for the European Union. Their goal is to have 1/4 of the European Union's transport fuel needs met by biofuels by the year 2030.